So, episode 7, we're going to be talking about cash flow today. Tom's just running a little bit late for this episode. We're just waiting for him to arrive now. Here he is. He's just coming now. Don't hit the camera, Tom. Come on.
They're trying to destroy this set.
Oh, yeah. So they won't have been able to hear what you were saying there about bad traffic and all the rest of it.
Of course, yeah.
So just adjust your mic so you've got the...
Got the little spacing thing.
Just maybe lift it up slightly. Just saying to our audience that we're getting into episode 7 now.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So another episode on the pod.
Yeah.
We're doing cash flow today.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
So-
yeah, big one.
So British Business with Matt Holland and my co-host Tom McIlvenny.
Yeah, nailed it. Well done.
That was that good. That
10 out of 10 for that one. I'll give you that.
10. Excellent. I'm getting good at this. We like last episode was all about risks and decision making in business, which I think can choke and slow businesses down a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got to be quick and fast. This episode we're touching into cash flow.
Yeah, very good.
And it ChatGPT, friend of the podcast, my best mate.
Not a sponsor just yet, but
Not sponsored by OpenAI just yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Is it Sam Altman, the owner of that?
Is it Elon? Elon
It
was
is, involved yeah.
in it,
It's Sam Altman. I think Elon. I think he left, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting,
his
that
own.
little story. Like, Justin, we'll just dip into it, but like, because Elon and Sam set it up, and it was set up as a non-profit.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Elon left because he didn't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And Elon, apparently, according to Elon, so
Yeah.
whether or not you believe him or not, he came up with the name OpenAI.
Yeah.
The whole OpenAI is that it's supposed to be open source.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then they pivoted. Sam Altman and the guys that were running the basically open source non-profit pivoted it and changed the company to a profit.
Crafty.
And they're going through all that legal process now
God.
and tweaking it to be profited so that they can make profit. So it's an interesting thing. So the intellectual property of OpenAI was developed in a non-profit setting, and then they're trying to move that over to a corporate setting because obviously the valuation's gone through a roof.
Oh, yeah, billions, yeah.
So it's quite a controversial thing, that. But anyway, our ChatGPT friends at OpenAI, they said why it's the silent killer of businesses.
Yeah.
Which it is.
It is,
100%. Like, we'll probably be talking about overtrading, revenue versus profit, all these kind of like different discussion points on cash in business. And like, I think like in the early days of business, like just to get started, you need a bit of cash. Like, no one's going to give you credit.
No.
When you set up a business.
Not off the bat, they won't.
And you've got to inject a bit of cash to start off with. So how do you get that cash? Like, I mean, when you started your business, how did you do that initial injection? You'd obviously had a job prior to that.
Yeah. Well, I did, and then went to university, and then when I came out of that, that's when I set up. So, I was working part time basically.
Yeah.
And using the income to live off from that.
Do you? I mean, the next episode actually is an episode about you. You're actually becoming a guest on the next episode.
Right, okay.
So we're gonna delve into the world of Tom McIlvenny and everything that you encompass. Yeah. But I'd imagine there must have been that first sale on eBay.
Oh yeah.
And to cash flow that, you will have had some money that you had in your bank account.
Yeah.
50, 60 quid.
Yeah. 200 quid.
200 quid.
Yeah.
You bought something and sold it.
Yeah. And just rolled it over.
Yeah. Didn't take any money out. Now, that is the important thing. Is that first sale, you left it in?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Rolled it, bought some more stuff, rolled it.
And I think that's a big point with cash flow, is like the role of the entrepreneur is not to be fed.
No, yeah. Eat last, innit? That's what we say.
Yeah.
Eat last.
So you've got to starve yourself of cash and remuneration so that your business builds
It needs the foundations. And the foundations is cash, isn't it?
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what keeps the business alive, is that cash flow. It's like the lifeblood going through the business.
I think actually entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs in businesses, it's kind of like one of our fatal flaws is that we run at a high reps per minute, like rotations per minute, it's at a high frequency in the sense that like we're wanting to move, we're wanting to do things.
Yeah.
And cash flow to have good cash flow in a business, you need stability and you need steady improvement.
Yeah.
If you grow too quickly cash flow becomes a problem. If you're not growing enough, then the entrepreneur or the people in the business are starved of profit and cash. They can't pay themselves. So you've kind of got to find that happy medium. You've got to be profitable at the same time.
Yes.
I mean, unless you're like, say, Amazon. Amazon were famously a company that was not profitable for a very long time, and they were having constant cash investment from investors. And I think it was, I'd probably misquote myself, but I'm sure it was approaching 10 years before they became profitable as a business.
Yeah, would not surprise me.
Like, that is rare. Like, the reality is that most small businesses in the UK, like, we have to be cash positive on day one.
Yeah, to survive.
Like, you can't operate a business unless you're in fintech or like you're in a startup that's like developed something like OpenAI, which is highly valuable.
Yeah. You're
not going to get cash into your business. The banks ain't going to touch you. You don't want to borrow money on something that's like you need to be really careful. I mean, I think cash flow is more important than revenue. Why do you think I think that?
I think cash flow will keep the business alive, keep the heart beating within that business, and buy your time.
Yeah.
You can therefore have that stable base when you know your cash flow positive. You know that growth therefore is possible, and it can all be self-funded.
And maybe actually what I'm saying is I think cash flow is more important than revenue growth.
Oh right, yeah. No,
so
definitely
because you
can overtrade if you just grow 20, 30, 40. Right, entrepreneurs, we just want to grow and grow and grow, don't we? Ultimately. Yeah. And that's why so many of us fall into the trap of overtrading and then go, oh God, but I want to add 50% of my revenue year on year on year. Probably not. Well, will be in the early stages where your revenue might not be that large to begin with. So doubling or adding 50% possible. But when you're getting into the realms of some bigger numbers, it's a tall ask to do that, and you need capital and cash flow to fund, and ultimately you probably will not have that.
I think as well, entrepreneurs, our minds are racing with lots of ideas, lots of creative things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And it's a skill, I think, that you develop to control that voice in your head that's going, what about this, what about that, why don't we do this, like why don't we do that, in relation to cash flow.
Yeah.
Because you go in, I think something really challenging is like leaving cash in the bank.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly like you're going, well, I can take that $5,000 and I can deploy it over here in the business and it's going to give me this return on investment. But actually, you need that cash in the bank.
Yeah, it needs to sit there
because you've got bills to pay, and you need a buffer, and like the size of that buffer depends on the type of business you are. And I'm sure, like if we were to sit my accountant here, they'd talk about like cash ratios to like all kinds of different things. It's like, I mean, we're a business podcast, but we're not an accountancy podcast, so we're not going to bore anyone with that.
It's not financial advice.
No, it's not not financial advice. But yeah, we like. I think a skill in entrepreneurship is definitely leaving cash in the business, 100%. Have you ever had a moment where you think like, right, I've made, it's like in relation to decisions and risks where you've taken a bit of a punt on something, it's not been going as well as you would have liked. You've hit a bit of a cash flow thing. Have you experienced cash flow challenges in your business?
Yeah, we have experienced multiple cash flow challenges.
Not surprised.
Within our business across the years. Some way more severe than others.
Yeah.
And you know what? That teaches you a lesson as well. Like the way in which we were managing the cash flow for quite a number of years was not
good enough,
effective. No, not at all. So, I mean, I own that partly because my background is accounting and finance, and doing as a trainee accountant and things. But I was just so caught up in the hustle and bustle of like overtrading, growing this, try that, let's do this, let's get on with it. You neglect the cash flow, but we've put systems and processes in place now where we forecast our cash flow just simple as using Excel. Nothing fancy, something I put together myself, and I forecast cash flow basically 4 months ahead by the day as well. I used to do it by the week, but sometimes we see pinch points in midweeks and certain points where big payments, like maybe VAT bill, is due in a particular day. Yeah, terrible, isn't it? But it's
we won't mention how much we paid out on VAT in this quarter.
No,
it's like
this is
sickening.
Yeah, and that can trip a lot of people up, the VAT bill.
Well, actually, just to touch on that, like in relation to cash flow, like a lot of businesses run smoothly until they have to pay the tax.
Yeah,
because you're trading through, you've got stock, or you might have stock depending on the type of business you are, you've got cash in the bank, and then out of nowhere, because it's on a quarterly basis, I think for small businesses in particular, it's even harder for large businesses. It's hard for all businesses, VAT, because it comes, like what we now do is we plan and we go, right, we know where we're at each month because we've got management accounts in place.
Yeah.
So we know what that VAT number is, whether it's positive or negative, depending on what we've been buying and what have you. And yeah, I mean, the implications of HMRC on businesses and their cash flow is really challenging.
Yeah.
And they don't mess around. VAT.
No,
like if you don't pay them on time, you're in a sticky mess straight away. They'll be putting a winding up order on you. Like it's a bit of a.
Then the main ones aren't that call. They've got the power to call in.
Yeah, they can call in, and you just got to be really careful. But I think like it's about listening to experts, like professional advisors in business. I think that's something that a lot of business owners sometimes kind of, they look at their accountant with maybe a little bit of disrespect, which I think is really wrong, because those professional advisors, they help you spot the iceberg before it hits you. And like people that skimp on accountancy fees or like go for solicitors that aren't as maybe as good as they could have gone for, or like quibble with their solicitors over what they're paying them, or the same with their accountant. Professional services, you have to pay for them in your business. And like when you're encountering issues like cash flow, you've got to listen to these professional advisors, but also you've got to take ownership yourself. Like
it's your responsibility.
Yeah, as business owners, you've got to, if you're not, you've got to work on and become an expert at cash flow forecasting. And that applies even if you're a £100,000 turnover business. Like you need to know the money going in your bank account and out your bank account. And I think like basic tips, if you're not running management accounts in your business and you're not looking at your balance sheet on a monthly basis, like some people work, to be fair, like small businesses, it took me a long time to understand a P&L. It took me a really long time to understand what a balance sheet was, like amortization and depreciation. I'm still like, my head like gets confused between those things today. Like understanding the financial mechanisms in companies and sole traderships, it is challenging. And then you add in, you've got profitability, your P&L, you've got your balance sheet, which is your assets, and then over here it's like, well, what's cash flow? I thought cash flow was profit. It's two different things. So you can have really positive cash flow, but you might be losing money.
People sometimes, some business owners will judge the feel of their business. They think they're making money because the cash in the bank is going up and up and up. And then do you know what happens? That VAT bill comes on the quarter if the VAT registered, and they go, oh my God, like 50 or even 60% of that money in the bank's not even mine.
Exactly.
I've got to pay it to the HMRC.
The registry. It is hard. Like so I think you can very easily, like to navigate cash flow successfully in any business, you need to become knowledgeable on it. Like the way I've become knowledgeable on that, I sit and watch YouTube videos.
Good.
Like I spend time on YouTube. I listen to people that know what they're talking about. Like I've had a mentor. I've got a mentor now, Simon. He's like pushed me in certain directions. I've had other people that I've bounced ideas off. Like we talk about it. I ask about what cash flow mechanisms you have in your business. I ask smaller businesses what they do. Like we're in a very fortunate position in our business now where we've got a bit of a war chest, so we're okay. But it's not always been like that. It's been hard. Like we've found things difficult while we were growing, and that's the key thing. Is I think as an entrepreneur, you're going through risk decision making. You're going through dealing with people. You've got this to deal with, that to deal with. The one thing that you have to that comes before all of that, becomes before this podcast, becomes before everything in your life, is your cash flow.
You've got to manage it tightly.
You need to know how long you can survive with no revenue without cash, or what happens if you're not profitable for 6 months, or what happens if this key person left the business. Like these all have impacts on your cash flow, and the idea of a cash flow is that you can then stress test it. Like, you don't want to create a cash flow that looks great.
No. I mean, what's the point in that?
What's the point in that?
Yeah.
You want to do your cash flow as if things are not going well.
Yeah. It's exactly what I do within our business when I'm forecasting cash flow for us, with Ep7. Baseline, look at what we did the same month previous year, look at the pattern, look at our trading pattern in the current environment, and never, ever will I go, things are looking quite good at the moment, I'm going to forecast 30% increase in sales just for the heck of it. No. Baseline or even a slight decrease when I know times are good. And that keeps you on your toes.
I think when you're doing double-digit percentage growth year on year, the temptation is to put that number in and keep it double-digit, but you have to go, no, I'm going to project flat growth with increased costs. With cash going out of the business because we've had to make capital expenditures.
Put that squeeze on.
And go, what does it look like?
Yeah. And that'll motivate you more to be like, right, turning this situation around, because I can look 2-3 months ahead of myself now and go, oh my God, is that the situation with the bank account? Absolutely no way.
Yeah. And then you go, right, I'm going to do 60 hours this week.
Yeah. And put the effort in.
The effort in. I'm going to do a bit of pick and pack.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah.
Which actually is a stupid thing. You should never do that. But in our size business anyway, we've got to protect our time. Like, I'm trying to actively now work less in terms of like, because my brain never switches off from work.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about the business, and it's a fatal flaw of mine, I suppose, but it's a huge strength as well, like for the business and the company. So I'm always thinking about it, and my best thoughts, my best decisions around cash flow and everything is happens when I'm not in the business.
Yeah.
Like today, or like when I go to the gym and go in the sauna, like things just come to me and I'm going, I should do that instead. Like, so taking time out of the business, which is something that I mentioned, we've covered in a previous episode.
Yeah.
In relation to cash flow, really important.
Yeah.
Like, if you're facing down a problem and you don't know what the solution is, take a couple of days away.
Yeah, get some time away.
But like, if we go to the biggest cash flow killers in business, kind of things that drain your bank account. We've mentioned VAT.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point, just to circle back on that VAT, about how your business does monthly management accounts, and you can see your VAT situation at the end of every single month, can't you? Whether it's a reclaim or it's a payment that's going due. Some businesses might not do that.
Yeah.
So absolutely, they need to do that for a start.
Yeah.
Another way with the VAT, even if you're not doing management accounts, what we started doing many years back was obviously VAT 20%, but that's off top line sales. Depends if you've got any sales in the mix there that are 0 rated. For us, it's children's products. Safety. And then obviously you've got on your purchases the reclaim of VAT on either goods. Goods is the biggest thing for us where we can reclaim the VAT. So instead of working out, say 20%, just take anywhere from sort of 12 to 15% of your top line, and either every month or every couple of weeks transfer 15% of your top line into a separate bank account. So that's what we've got. We've got trading account, one where we used to trade from, buy, all the income comes into that. Then we've got VAT savings account. So where we know every 2 weeks we're transferring 15% of the top line into that account, and it just builds up there and there and there.
I think that segmentation of cash in your business, really important. You need to have multiple bank accounts. You need to also, like, if you go in for a risk or you're going to explore a new opportunity, like for that little enterprise option that you're doing within your limited company or within your sole tradership, have a separate bank account that you run that little side project out of.
Yeah, good point.
So you go, right, I'm going to move 300 quid a month into that, and that's my budget for that little side enterprise, or $3,000 or whatever the amount of money is. And then that's your budget for the month.
Yeah.
I think budget control is like huge. And like, I mean, in terms of costs in business, like we obviously have mentioned our relationship with Google.
Oh God.
Have you been invited to their head office yet?
You know what? I was in Dublin 2 weeks ago, and I thought, I shouldn't have paid for this flight. You should have been invited over, rolled the red carpet out by Google. No, in all fairness, I have a call every couple of weeks with the account manager at Google, and they're really nice. They have offered, come out to Google, we'll show you around because apparently it's amazing, the campus there. I mean, that is one significant cost that we bear, and I'm sure many other companies do across any industry. Google's
a big one because that comes out of your bank account every day. For online retailers. For other businesses where you're more of a bricks business rather than a clicks business, it's like your rent. any rates, like those big numbers where maybe your rent is due on a quarterly basis. So once a quarter you have this big cash output, and it's like, and most of the time it always happens when your VAT is due as well. And then you've got your personal tax bills, then you've got your corporation tax. So it's managing these lumps. That's the problem I think that a lot of businesses face. And also managing yourself and making sure you're not overextending yourself. The risks have to be calculated. What other things do you think, like inventory for us, that's something that like we have to closely monitor, over ordering inventory, keeping the cash reserves, finding that balance, that's something that's taken a long time for us to get right. We now monitor inventory turnover ratio and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Key metric for you to monitor, because in speaking from experience in our industry, where the commodity is the inventory that we buy, that is nigh on the biggest outlay that we'll make, outside of marketing and shipping probably, and overbuying, because we're ordering up front before the customers have committed any orders to us. So it's you're buying based off knowledge, experience, and you can your gut, and sometimes you can over order if it's a new product. If it's a line you carried for years and you know what the demand's like in the market, it might be seasonal as well. But generally in our industry, you're front loading the product, taking it in first, and then having to pay for it on 30 days, 60 days, depending on what your relationship is with the brand. Yeah,
it is hard. I think for us, that balance is challenging. And like if you look at I like to when you walk up a high street and you go in shops, and if you look at what people are selling in a shop, like there'll be a percentage of that shop where it's stuff that is bought and sold on a regular basis.
Yes.
And then there'll be a percentage of that shop that hasn't been sold in 6 months or a year. Yeah. And I think as business owners, you've got to really identify those slow moving units of stock.
Yeah.
If you're in retail, it's easy for us to talk about retail because we're in it. So if you can identify, say if you're running a bookshop, the books that are just not moving.
Yeah, collecting dust.
Well, your cash is sat in that.
Yeah.
And it's not
your profit is sat in that as well.
Yeah, your profit's sat in that. Those assets, that stock is not appreciating in value. If anything, it depreciates.
The stock's valued at cost or net realisable value. So as it is sat there for 6 months, it's depreciated in value. It might be worth 50% of what you actually paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think retail is really hard. I think there's certain business types that are much easier to cash flow, like if you think about consultancy-based businesses,
service-based businesses,
like that's a lot easier. Business retail is very hard. Hospitality,
very hard. Like you look at commercial property, if you're trying to get into that as a game, well, that's cash intensive, isn't it? Like you've got to buy an asset, or if you're lending against it, you've got to make sure your cash flow is really good. So there's caveats to all these different industries. I think if you're a B2B business, one of the top tips I would suggest is asking or incentivizing your customers to pay on a pro forma basis. So if you think, right, well, I'm invoicing people and giving them 30-day terms, but then I'm having to cash flow my business myself, and it's costing me X% in loans on an annualised basis, or if you're having to do invoice financing and stuff like that. Factoring. That's all margin gone.
Yeah, it's margin gone. So why not go to your customers and say, hey, if you pay me immediately, I'll give you extra 2% off the order. Settlement discount. That's a really effective mechanism to improve cash flow in your business. But these benefits, they only really happen once.
Yeah.
So once you flip that big customer over to pro forma discount, you've had the benefit, you're giving them the discount. It doesn't happen again.
No, you've got to get used to that cash flow then.
Yeah, and so I think you've got to be really careful. So another point I would touch on is this debate between cash and profit. Out of interest, this is a bit of a conundrum I was thinking about last night before shooting today's episode. The challenge between cash and profit. So would you take a business that was cash flow positive, but not profitable? So cash flow positive, not profitable, or a highly profitable business but with terrible cash flow.
The decisions. Ultimately, we want profit, don't we? At the end of the day, but I'd definitely take the first option. I'd take the high cash flow business with issues with profit, low profitability, because I know with a few tweaks here and there to the business model, either whatever we're doing. Let's use e-commerce for example. I know straight away where we can save money. Look at the business, whether it be shipping, suppliers, software that we're using, and soon be able to turn that percentage from.
Well, there's a chap I know, and his business. I won't name because I'm talking about his business, but he's in like a subscription-based business model where it's terrible for cash flow.
Oh God!
So he's having to pay out loads of money on advertising. And then he'll have a little bit of revenue. But then the revenue drips in on the subscription further down the line. So that's really challenging to manage. So he can be very non-profitable and poor cash flow in month 1, 2, and 3 when he's acquiring customers. But then in month 3 and 4, he's not acquiring those customers; they're just subscribed.
That's where the cream is. That's where the lifetime value is.
Yeah, so it's like a double whammy.
That is a challenge.
That's a really hard. But for me, going back to my question to you, I would pick the same. I would go for a good cash flow model with poor profitability because there's always cost savings you can make and turn it around.
100%.
Or, I mean, to play devil's advocate, if you go for high profit business that has poor cash flow, well, the poor cash flow has probably been created by the entrepreneur going too hard and fast.
Mismanaging.
So it's probably easier to solve a situation where the cash flow is poor but the profit is great. By going slower. If that makes sense. So acquiring less customers and not pushing it as hard.
What have you done, for example, in your business then to improve cash flow for you?
Without being too specific, I think like we've implemented and pivoted systems to leverage our trade creditors. So we buy and sell our stock at a faster frequency. I think it goes back to that kind of bookshop thing of like making sure your stock is turning.
He's got it.
It's like monitoring stock turn is really important. Like I think if you look at Amazon and big business, I'm a big fan of Amazon. Do you like Amazon?
Absolutely love it. Yeah. Sometimes.
Tom sells a lot on Amazon. We don't sell on Amazon, but I really like their business. I like how analytical they are. Like McDonald's, when I worked there on their graduate program, they are massive on stock. Right.
It's perishable, isn't it?
It's perishable, exactly. So they literally, if they don't use their stock, it's gone. It loses its value. So, like in hospitality businesses, pubs, restaurants, like stock turn is something like FIFO, first in, first out. They're all over that all the time. You've got to be so careful with your date rotation and things like that. I suppose like if you don't use it, it goes in that scenario, which makes it even harder. I mean, stress and cash.
Oh God, right, yeah.
I think cash is probably the big it's the most sensitive issue in business. Because there's this. I think because of the Western world and society that we live in, unfortunately, society is quite materialistic. So business owners have this, and I think it's wrong. Really, I don't think it should be a taboo.
No,
I think people should be comfortable about talking about cash and wealth. But you can't for whatever reason. It's like,
frowned upon.
It's frowned upon. So you like business owners and like cash. I think you just got to be really careful with it, and like the stress around cash because it's a taboo. People don't want to talk about it, so it builds up inside you. It creates anxiety. I think like this is a really sensitive issue for people to think about and talk about, and I think there is a bit of like burying your head in the sand.
100%. I think people that are experiencing cash flow issues, and multiple businesses will experience it throughout the year, throughout the course of the year, throughout the lifetime of the business. And I think as a business owner, you feel kind of ashamed that you're in a cash flow situation, because from the outside it's deemed, what, he doesn't know what he's doing. Look, he can't pay his bills. Like look at the situation that he's in, or he or she is in, whoever's running the business. So yeah, it does. It is very, very stressful. You certainly lose sleep over it.
100%. I have.
Yeah. I mean, I had, looking here, I used to have a completely black stubble. There's grey here. There's grey here.
A bit of silver birch.
This is just call it character.
You ever thought about dyeing your hair?
Just for men. Do you think they might want to sponsor?
Sponsor you. Sponsor Tom Person.
I'll give it a go. Anything.
I think I've got a couple of grey hairs in my beard, but because it's so orange on the camera, it distorts.
Hides it.
There we are. Yeah, no, what about like the psychology of holding cash in your business? Do you find it difficult to have cash in the bank when you're looking at opportunities? Like, say a supplier comes to you and goes, "Oh, we've got this clearance line." And they're polishing it up. They're polishing up, and there's like this big shiny object over here.
Look at this margin you can make.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh God.
Do you find that difficult, like keeping the cash in the bank? Because of how entrepreneurial you are.
Yeah, because you want to seize the opportunity, because if you don't, someone else is going to snaffle that stock up and make the fantastic margin that's available at the time. I did used to think cash in the bank was just a waste of money. Whereas now I see it completely differently. I think you need that safety net in the business. It certainly makes you sleep better. And I think you make better informed decisions when you're not under cash flow pressure. Yeah. You're making it with a clear mind, and also knowing that you've got resource there to seize an opportunity if you choose to. If not, you know what? They'll always come along. Opportunities will come in front of you multiple times over the course of a year, or a few years or whatever. And you need to be in a position where you have got the cash to seize that opportunity.
Exactly, that's it. Like, so you can only take the opportunity so many times. Yeah. So you've got to weigh up whether or not it's something we're doing. I think like one of the big things with cash, which I'd just quickly touch on, would be like entrepreneurs leaving cash in the business. Don't get greedy. No. Like, not every year is going to be great. No. Like, don't buy a fast car. No. Like, I look at some people and I just go, that doesn't stack up.
No, well, you can see it.
Because I know how to run a business, like, and I've run a business through challenging times and positive times. In both scenarios, like, you want to have a nice car, like you want to have some luxuries in your life, but don't get tempted. No. If you're sat on some cash in your business, just leave it there. Some people talk about how you are, like, a measurement of wealth is your wealth outside of your business. It's kind of like you ultimately, what only matters is what's in your personal bank account. And that is true from a personal wealth perspective, but it can't come over the financial health of your company or your business. No. You have to leave that money in. You've got to feed yourself last. Like, come March or April, when the pay increases have to go across our business, or like when minimum wage goes up, like, doesn't mean I'm getting a pay rise.
No.
I've got to, like, as entrepreneurs and business owners, you are fed last. You've got to wait 12 months, and then you go, right, we did have a good year. We've got a surplus on the cash. Yeah. What's our minimum cash we need in the business to thrive and not have any issues? Right, well, let's add an extra 50% on that. Yeah. And then when we breach that threshold, we're allowed to take a bit of money out. Yeah. Exactly. Like, you've got to run a business like that. That's the best way of doing it. Do not buy a Porsche.
No. Well, you see it all the time where someone's getting ahead of themselves, they've had a taste of success, it's going okay, they then they're out there, they're buying the new car or the big house or something like that, and then you know what happens, 12 months down the line, 18 months down the line, when times get harder, maybe they've not experienced that, or a cash flow situation comes along and they go, oh my God, I can't pay the wages, I can't pay the rent. Yeah. And then it's not the situation you want to be in.
It's hard. I look at business owners and I go slowly.
Yeah.
Go slowly.
Measured.
Be careful. Like, don't overpay yourself, underpay yourself. Yeah. Have a healthy business because you'll sleep at night. Yeah. Like, you've just got to be really careful. Like, we've had a lot of success in our business. We're not paying ourselves. Like, we're looking after ourselves, but we're looking after the business first. Yeah, always comes first.
Got to.
And then you come last, basically, behind your staff, bills and everything. That's really important. And if it's not going well, you've got to be willing to not get paid.
Yeah, well, I've had times like that.
Yeah, we're both. I'll tell you what, if you speak to a room of 100 business owners and you ask them if you ever not been able to pay yourself, all of them will say yes.
Yeah. And you shouldn't be ashamed of that.
Yeah, and if you haven't done that, well, maybe
you've not been tested.
Yeah, you've not been tested, or maybe you're not entrepreneurial enough, you've not created the problems.
Part
of it is, it's like this balance between entrepreneurship and cash flow. You've kind of got to keep yourself under control and just edge it forward and what have you. So yeah, I think that we've kind of covered quite a lot there. I think the psychology of leaving money in the bank account is really interesting. Like, that kind of like concept of how and why you leave cash behind.
And how much should you leave behind?
And how much you leave behind. And that's a question to bounce around with your accountant. Yeah. Because they have a view of lots of different types of business. So ask them, like, out of interest, like what would you say is typical? And you can do like, you can look at other businesses on Companies House and what have you, and see what their cash to asset ratio is like and what have you. But yeah, so the next episode's a really good episode, and just wanted to kind of like drip it in. So make sure you tune in for episode, what number will it be? It'll be episode 8, and it's Tom's story. It's about Tom. It's about Tom's journey in his entrepreneurship. We'll start off in the early days and just have a half an hour chat about like where he's come from, and I just think that'll be really interesting. So make sure you tune in for that. If you can, please make sure you subscribed on YouTube. You're following us on Spotify. Comment on both of them if you can. It just really helps us. And if you've got some value out of this, maybe try and share it with a friend that's in business, or share it with your network. Just really helpful. That reciprocation really helps us with the podcast. We've enjoyed today's episode. I hope you have, and we'll leave it there. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thank you.